皆さんおはようございます. Thank you for joining me today. This is the Easy Japanese News article of the day for January 8th, 2026. 2026年1月8日の今日の記事でございます. So I figured I'd try out something new today. So I'm going to read you the headline of the article. We'll go over the vocab and even a little bit of grammar that's used in the headline. Then I'll have you try to see if you can figure out what the headline means. Then we'll break it down. Then we'll go into the article and everything else. So let me know what you think about this format we have here. So we have 大阪、車が警察官をボンネットに乗せたまま700メートル走る. So here is our vocabulary from the headline alone. We have 車, which is a car. 警察官, which is a police officer. Sorry about that. That should be officer, police officer. And we have bonnet, which is the hood of a car or a vehicle. I believe bonnet is British English, but in the United States, we call this a hood of a car. And we have noseru. So noseru is to, it can mean a lot of things. One is to give a ride to someone, let someone ride, to pick someone up, or also just to place something on top of something else. So anytime there's an action and you do it to this thing and that thing ends up on top of something else, you would call that noseru. And then we have hashiru. So literally means to run, but you can also use this for when you're in a car, you're driving it, you're running the car. Like you can run it a distance or you can run it to a place. Instead of the verb to use to drive, like 運転する, you can use 走る. Okay, so I believe for the first time ever we have a grammar point that is in the headline as it is. So I figured we'd go over this before that. So we have our grammar point as mama, which is a state, and we're being left in that state. So there will normally have something come in front of this mama to mean in a certain state. And there are all sorts of things that can come in front of mama. I won't describe them all. It's very common to have a verb in the past tense. Something happens or someone does something and they leave it in a certain state. But there are other, grammar structures that can also connect to this mama here. But let's go over some example sentences here. So we have 火をつけたまま出かけてしまいました. So 火をつける. This is the 火 as in fire. 火をつける is to turn on a stove. Literally, you're putting on the fire. This is the verb they use for putting on the stove or turning on the oven, especially when there's fire involved, like a gas stove. But 火をつけたまま. So this would be the past tense connected to mama, meaning in that state of having turned on the stove. 出かけてしまいました. So 出かける, to head out, to leave the house. And then we have that てしまう, which is implying that this was a negative thing that happened, a very bad thing that happened. So unfortunately, he completely left the house while leaving the stove on. He left the house leaving the stove on. Okay. Then we have そのままでいいよ. So そのまま, we can also just say as that thing is, we can use このまま, そのまま, あのまま, meaning as that thing is, as this thing is, as that thing over there is. This is a very common phrase that I have run into when a Japanese person was kind enough to invite me into their house. And as the guest, I was grateful for their hospitality, so I tried to help them out. Like, they had me over for dinner, and I tried to carry the dishes and bring them to the sink. They said, no, leave it as it is. You're the guest, I'm the host. Let me do my host thing. Because they're very kind, a lot of them. So, そのままでいいよ. Please, leave it as it is. It's fine the way that it is. Don't do anything. Okay. Then we have something that might show up in something like a novel. We have 15年近く会ってなかったけど、その人は綺麗なままだった. So 15年 is 15 years. We can add 近く after a period of time to mean almost that period of time. So 15年近く would be almost 15 years. And then 会っていなかったけど, So 会っていなかった is the verb 会う to meet or to see. This is in the negative past, ている. So we're in a state of having not done this for a long time. So 15年近く会っていなかった had not seen her for 15 years or almost 15 years. けど, however, その人は that person was 綺麗なままだった. So that だった is technically where that was comes in. So that person was just as beautiful in the state that I last saw her. It's kind of the implication there. As previously when I last saw her. So I hadn't seen her for almost 15 years, but she was just as beautiful as the day I left her, kind of a thing. Okay, so let's take a look at this one more time with that vocab and that grammar point in our mind. So we have 大阪、車が警察官をボンネットに乗せたまま700メートル走る. Okay, I'll give you a couple seconds. Take a look at it. Feel free to pause as well. Okay, so we have 大阪. So 大阪. This is in Osaka. We have a space here, so that's implying this is our place, and then this is all going to take place in our place. Happen in our place, right? So 車が警察官をボンネットに乗せたまま. So all of this is describing our mama. Okay? So 車が actually I think it stops right here. Sorry. Yep. This describes our mama here. So 警察官をボンネットに乗せる. So 警察官 is a police officer. Bonnetto is the hood of the car, right? And then ボンネットに乗せる would be to put something, an action happened, and this officer was put on top of the hood of the car. And then this ga actually connects way down here to our final verb, 走る. So the car drove or ran for a certain amount. So 車が, we can just kind of forget this mama for now. 700メートル走る. So the car drove for 700 meters. And in what state did it drive? In the state of having a police officer put on the hood thereof. So this is a very Japanese sentence. So noseru, once again, it's kind of hard to translate this perfectly into English without adding a whole bunch of extra stuff. Basically, this police officer was hit and ended up on top of the car, and the car continued to drive with the police officer on top, which in Japanese we would say noseta mama, right? And then 700メートル走る. So ended up on top of the car, and the car continued to drive for 700 meters in that state, noseta mama. Okay, here is our vocabulary list number 2. This is from the article, not just from the headline, but this is in the main article. So we have these extra words here. So we have 商店街, which is a shopping street or a center in Japan. The shopping streets or centers often have a very wide, almost street-like thing in the middle, but a lot of times cars aren't supposed to drive on there, or there are certain hours where they're not supposed to. But that is a 商店街. And then we have 向かう, which is to head towards something or to face something. 落ちる is to fall. I think we talked about this in the article yesterday, but this is for something to fall off of something. So it's not just to fall over, but like in the air, fall, right? So, and we have 怪我をする. So 怪我 is an injury. 怪我をする is to become injured or to be injured. And we have 事件, which is a case or an incident, normally implying something bad. And we have 逃げる, which is to run away or to flee. 運転する, which is to drive like a vehicle. We have 容疑者, which is a suspect. Even when it is so clear that someone has done something, Japanese TV and Japanese news tends to call them a 容疑者, even if they have 100% admitted their crime. a lot of times they will just call them 容疑者 until they are straight up convicted of their crime. So that's 容疑者, a suspect. And then we have 捕まえる, which is to capture, to catch, or also to arrest someone.
昨日の夕方、大阪府の岸和田市で男が警察官を車の上に乗せたまま走りました。警察によると、車が商店街を走ってはいけない時間に走っていたため、警察官が止めようとしました。しかし、車は止まらないで警察官に向かってきました。そして、警察官を車のボンネットに乗せたまま700メートルぐらい走りました。警察官は車から落ちて足などに怪我をしました。この事件で警察は逃げた車を運転していたとして40歳の容疑者を捕まえました。
Okay, let's jump right into our article here.
昨日の夕方、大阪府の岸和田市で男が警察官を車の上に乗せたまま走りました。
Okay, so we have 7日の夕方, or she says 昨日. So something you'll notice, she always says 昨日, 今日, 明日, today, tomorrow, yesterday, but for the actual written article, they'll always have the specific days. So here, 7日 is the 7th の夕方. So on the evening of the 7th, 夕方 is evening. 7日 connected with の to say it's kind of like the 7th owns the evening, right? We have 大阪府. So 大阪府 is 大阪, who is kind of the name of the prefecture. So there's only 2 fus, I think, 京都府, 大阪府. Most of them are ken, and then there's one do, 北海道, and then there's 東京都. So most of them will be ken, but for Osaka, it's a fu, and Kyoto is also a fu. So 大阪府の岸和田市で, so 岸和田市, she is city, so in the city of 岸和田で, and that's their in, so in the city of 岸和田 in Osaka Prefecture. 男が, so 男 is a man, and then が is going to do an action. 警察官を, so 警察官, police officer, 車の上に, so 車の上, car on top of, so 上 be the top of, and then に we have an action going to the top of the car or on the top of the car, and 乗せる, which is to once again put something on top of, an action happens, someone ends up on top of something, that can be called 乗せる. And this is in the past tense with mama, as we saw in our grammar point. So 車の上に乗せたまま would be having put that person on top of the car and leaving it in that state. 走りました. So a man, after having put a policeman on top of his car, it sounds weird in English, he didn't go out there and grab him and put him on top, but he hit him and he ended up on top of the car. That can still be called 乗せる. In that state of having put him on his car, 走りました. He drove. So when you're in a car, 走る can be drive. When you're not in a car, 走る would be to run or to move or to go, right?
警察によると、車が商店街を走ってはいけない時間に走っていたため、警察官が止めようとしました。
Okay, so 警察によると. When we have によると, this means according to. And then 警察 is the police. So according to police, 車が so we have a car and it's doing something with this が商店街を so 商店街 a shopping street or a shopping center 走ってはいけない okay, this is 走る sorry, it looks like I forgot to include the furigana here, but this is 走ってはいけない so when we have てはいけない or てはいけません with a verb, that means not allowed to do this action. This action is forbidden. So here, 走ってはいけない not allowed to drive. Right? So 商店街を走ってはいけない would be not allowed to drive in the shopping center. And then this is all modifying 時間. So a time, which is 時間. A time in which you're not allowed to drive in the shopping center. And then 時間に when something happens at a certain time or on a time. We use に and then 走る once again in the past tense ている. So we're in a state of doing this action. So 走っていた is was driving. So a car was driving at a time when you were not allowed to drive in the shopping street, the shopping center, and connected to ため, which means due to this happening or because this was happening. So because there was a car that was driving at a time when you're not allowed to drive in the shopping center or the shopping street, 警察官が so we have our police officer with that が they're going to do something or be something, and the police officer was doing what? 止めようとしました. So we have a grammar here, ようとする in the past tense. But then our verb here that's connected to that is 止める. So 止める is to stop. And then this ようとしました is the volitional plus とする, which is attempting to do something, or it can also be just starting to do something, but here it's attempting to do something. So, because there was a car that was driving at a time you weren't allowed to drive on the shopping street, the police officer was attempting to stop that car. So saying, hey, you can't do this. Right?
しかし、車は止まらないで警察官に向かってきました。
Okay, しかし. So しかし is a very literary however. This sentence starting however. So however, 車は our car is our main topic. And what about the car? 止まらないで. So once again we have 止まる to stop. Actually no, we had previously had 止める, which is the transitive verb. And then this is 止まる, which is the intransitive verb. So something stops versus someone is stopping something. But here we're talking about the car not stopping itself. So 止まる in the negative here. 止まらないで. And then the negative て, which means this didn't happen and then something else is going to happen. So, however, the car did not stop and 警察官に向かってきました. So 警察官 is once again our police officer. 警察官に so something is happening towards this police officer. 向かって so this is 向かう in the te form. 向かう can be to head towards or to face. And then we have the te form with the past tense of 来る. So we have a verb て来る. This can be either a positional thing or a time thing, but right here, since this is something happening right there, and it's happening towards the police officer, 向かってくる can be started heading towards the police officer. So, the police officer attempted to stop the car. However, the car did not stop, and it started heading towards the police officer. So it was heading and it was coming towards the police officer.
そして警察官を車のボンネットに乗せたまま700メートルぐらい走りました。
そして 警察官を車のボンネットに乗せたまま。So once again, we have our mama here. So, そして is a then. So then or thereafter. 警察官を So 警察官, something is going to happen to our 警察官 with this particle O here. So the police officer を車のボンネット. So 車 is our car. Bonnet is our hood of the car, or in British English that would be called the bonnet, UK English, right? And then に乗せたまま. So 乗せる, once again, to put something on top of something. 乗せたまま would be someone is on top of something. But this 乗せる implies that someone did this, right? It didn't just happen. That would be 乗ったまま. This is 乗せるまま or 乗せたまま. So due to the driver's actions, the police was put on top of the car and is now in that state. And then 700メートルぐらい. So 700メートル, 700 meters. ぐらい, approximately or about. And then 走りました. Which once again is to run or to drive. So the car continued to drive for around 700 meters with the police officer on top of the hood of the car.
警察官は車から落ちて足などに怪我をしました。
警察官は So we have our police officer, main topic here. What about the police officer? 車から落ちて So 車 car 車から from the car. And then 落ちる in the te form here is 落ちて It means fell off of, fell off from. So 車から落ちて would be fell from the car. 足など So 足 is feet or legs, and then など is and things like that. などに on these legs or feet. 怪我をしました So 怪我をする is to be injured. So the policeman fell off from the car and was injured or received injuries on the legs, feet, and the leg.
この事件で警察は逃げた車を運転していたとして40歳の容疑者を捕まえました。
Okay. この事件で So この事件 この is just saying this, and the 事件 is a case or an incident, and then this de is in this incident. So in this incident or case, 警察は the police are our main topic here, so what about them? 逃げた車 So 逃げた is 逃げる in the past tense, 逃げる to run away, to flee. And then this is in the past tense connected to 車, so the car that fleed. I guess fleed. Yeah. The car that ran away. 車を運転していた. So 運転する. And we see this all, so there's something that was driving this car. Car is the object here. 運転していた. So was in a state of driving this car. として. So this is very common if you have a statement and then として. This is very common in news articles to say, or like in cases or incidents or legal affairs and things like that, like where someone assumes something or they, due to something being in a certain state, they do another action. So here, thinking that this person was driving the fleeing car, the police, and then we're going to have the secondary action, thinking that this is the man who drove this fleeing car. Oops, I gave it away. It's a man. But anyways, 40歳の容疑者. So 40歳 is 40 years old. 容疑者 is a suspect. And then that's connected with no. 40歳の容疑者. So that no just says this noun is describing this noun. So the suspect that is 40 years old. を捕まえました. So 捕まえる to capture, to catch, or to arrest. So in this case, probably arrest would be the most common or the most appropriate word here. So, in this case, the police saying that he was the one that was driving the fleeing car arrested a 40-year-old suspect. So, that is what just happened in Japan. It's kind of interesting that a very similar thing happened in the United States, and it happened in a very American way in America, and it happened in a very Japanese way in Japan. I won't make any public statements about either of them because I don't think either of them are very good things that happened, but kind of interesting that kind of happened. Similar instances happened at the same time, but it sounds like they caught the man, and the driver or the police officer was not seriously injured, so at least that's a good thing. So thank you so much for being here. Let me know how you like that new format that I've done for the title. Maybe I'll continue doing that going forward if I have time in the future. But thank you for this. If you have never been here before and you really like these videos, please like and subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified when we upload these daily videos. And I will plan on seeing you tomorrow for our last one of the week. ありがとうございました。また明日。